Welcome to The Connection Code, a podcast where we explore the relationships that make your life and work just a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Rachel Gilman-Rischel. I lead a PR firm called 3PR focused on healthy food brands. And aside from loving snack life, I'm very obsessed with introductions and bringing people together.
You are obsessed with introductions, Rachel. You introduced me to someone like 10 minutes ago.
Oh, I just hit my goal today.
Amazing.
Okay, introduce yourself and we'll get back to the goal.
Okay, speaking of introductions, I'm Gina Anderson Cohen, and I've spent more than 13 years building a business that tricks adults into making friends through fitness called A Sweat Life. And I'm also building a social gathering and event space in New Buffalo, Michigan called Petite Acres. I'm pretty obsessed with friends, connections, and gathering.
So you and I love tracking our introductions because we share a little bit of that obsessive compulsive tendency plus love bringing humans together.
Yep.
And today I made my 151st intro for the year,
Wow.
which was the threshold I needed to hit to beat last year.
And you honestly, I feel like you're not gonna coast for the rest of December. I feel like you're just gonna try to really surpass it, aren't you?
Oh my God. I feel you know me too well already. Yes, I'm gonna probably try to like up the ante a little bit, but they all have to be real, genuine introductions that make sense, not me like thinking like, who can I just put together because? And you were so nice when today I came to you with an intro request, and the turnaround time I think was like 3 hours from when I'm like, will you have this conversation to you jumping on the phone?
There are some introductions you can kind of slow play, like it's not urgent, you want to meet each other, but it can happen in a couple of weeks. And there are some people who maybe like you've been introduced and they need to talk today. I could feel that was we needed to talk today. So I was happy to have a chat.
Thank you. And I think it's a credit to you that you are discerning enough to know this is somebody who urgently would love attention versus this is somebody I can talk to later. And that's a skill set of yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, Rachel, you brought our big question today.
I
I'm excited to
did.
chat through this.
I feel like a broken record, but we keep having really incredible conversations and meeting with really wonderful people. And the big question is often dictated by who we're going to interview. So today, our guest is author Kelly Cervantes. She has 2 books out. Her newest is called The Luckiest. We'll go into all of her wonderful things, but it made me think about being on a journey to connect with yourself, which was a big theme in the book. So I want to ask, has there ever been a turning point in your life, Gina, where you felt a deeper sense of self-connection?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question because I feel like self-connection is, in my experience, and I'm excited to hear your answer, a journey. Because there's never like 2 days when you're the exact same person. Your cells are turning over, your thoughts are a little different, you're experiencing different things. I think about this really often for like kind of an inconsequential client to me, but I had this client at an agency where I worked. It was like a winery in Napa, and the founders of this winery said this thing that I've never forgotten, and it was about every 7 years you should really do a repotting, personally and professionally. And it was, to them, the concept of repotting was like, pick a new career, pick a new place, uproot your life and learn something new. And I thought it was crazy at the time. But as I look back in my life, like it has made a lot of sense to make changes in those sort of cycles. And so the reason I thought about that is because I feel like I'm at the end of one of those cycles. I'm in the midst of repotting, in the last like year or so, we'll call it 2 years, has been like an unmooring. Like values have changed. I'm always getting older, but I'm getting older in a way that feels like, oh, we're slowing down, we're comfortable. I don't need the same things I needed before. I'm living in a different place. I'm focused on a different business. So all of that stuff sort of taught me new things about myself and who I am and what my identity is. So I think my self-connection has been deeper in the past couple of years because I haven't tied my identity so deeply to accomplishment, achievement, and who I am at work.
Wow. That is a really powerful thing to think about, is this sort of like 7-year itch or 7-year marker where you need
Mhm.
to revisit and try something that might be a dramatic departure. It's interesting because I had my 8th anniversary of running my agency,
Ooh,
and but what else happened is we started this podcast. I felt like
yeah,
I needed a new project, a new thing to delve into. So that 7-year time frame makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
I want to hear about
I
your values change though.
Well, I think values change. It's it's hard to, like, put a finger on it, but working in a sweat life was very much so, like, a blog at its start, and then lived in the social media world. And it's very easy in the social media world to get caught up in wanting to be first,
Mm.
wanting to try something first, talk about something first, wanting to do something first. And over the past couple of years, I've kind of gotten to this point where, like, first is cool. And I love that for you. But I just want to do the things that make me happy and feel fulfilled and strong. So it's sort of like there's a different, I don't know, like I don't necessarily care if I'm the coolest, the shiniest, or the brightest student in class. Like, I just want to feel like I'm lit up by the things I'm doing each day. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I think that feels very self-actualized.
Hmm. It really does, right? And I'm sure that'll
Yes.
change again. Like, I'm sure it'll change again. I'm sure we'll talk next summer, Rachel, and I'll be like, actually, I just really want to take a nap.
Always want to take a nap.
Yeah, yeah. What about you?
So even though I wrote the question, I was sort of stumped at first. I was like, what is a big self-connection moment? This is a
Yeah,
hard question, Rachel.
yeah,
And then I
it really
realized
is.
I did have a specific moment, like something that really crystallized where I was like, I was self-connected then. So to set the stage, when I turned 40 a couple years
Mm,
ago,
yeah.
and so did Ruben, and it was our 10-year wedding anniversary, we decided that we are going to go to Hawaii and celebrate. And it was still COVID days. We were
Hmm.
vaccinated, but like travel was still a big thing. And we were so
Yeah.
excited to get away together. And so I gave myself this whole pep talk and I said, Rachel, you are going to adopt a new persona for this trip. This is a very significant milestone trip. And you are going to be Aloha Rachel. And Aloha Rachel says yes as her default setting because I am sometimes very tentative about things. Sometimes I can retreat to no. And I wanted to be the person on this trip that embraced yes. So we
Mm,
go to Hawaii. It is a magical place. I'm so excited for you to go soon.
yeah.
And Ruben said, do you want to try surfing? And oh, did I want to say no? But I said, yes, I will try. And that was so uncomfortable. Just even the initial willingness to do a new physical activity in the ocean. Not a big ocean swimmer, not the most coordinated person. So we take the lesson, and I tell the instructor, I am either going to be so terrible at this or just freakishly good. I just felt
You
like it
were
was going to go one
good,
of two
weren't you?
ways. I was.
Yeah,
And
because your
so
your center of gravity is low.
100%. It's not really a testament to me. I'm just short. And so balancing on a board is easier
And you're
for a small
strong though, Rachel.
person.
It is a testament to you. Okay, keep going.
You're very sweet. So we get out there, and this really amazing surfing instructor was like, I'm going to count and push you when the wave comes, and you just need to get in position and stand up. And again, I can't do choreographed dance moves. The timing always gets me. Like, I was really, really anxious about this. But he's like, 1, 2, 3, go. And I did it. And the first time ever on a surfboard in the middle of the ocean, I surfed. It just
Mhm.
worked. Like, I got up, I caught the wave, and I just moved all the way forward. And in standing there on this board, like the most beautiful day in Hawaii with my husband celebrating this milestone, I'm like, I feel so attuned with myself. I am so proud of myself. I tackled this amazing, big, scary yes, and I'm surfing, which is
Mhm.
nuts at 40 for the first time. And so the takeaway from all of this is that I think self connection ebbs and flows. I would love to
Mhm.
say I always have it. I do not. But I think on that trip, it gave me a glimpse into what it looks like when you're really deliberate and intentional, you force yourself to kind of like lean into something that might be a little bit hard, and then you reap this incredible reward. And the rest of the trip, I rode this adrenaline high of what else can I do that I've previously said no to as a limiting belief, that if I just took the step, I might be good at it. I might be competent. I might have an amazing memory. Um, and as a side note, I've now surfed one more time with the kids in Mexico. I enjoyed it a lot less. I did hurt my foot. I've retired from surfing, but I tried to be the person that says yes.
Well, first and foremost, I love Aloha, Rachel. And it's well, Justin and I went to Hawaii for our 10th anniversary too.
Okay.
Um,
Love this.
and as you're talking through this, for my 40th birthday, Rachel, I said my goal was to swim with the current rather than against it. And here it feels really Aloha, Rachel.
Yes, you're going to be Aloha Gina.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this.
Yeah.
'Cause
So
now we are both women in our 40s on this podcast.
we're both welcome to your 40s, which, to be honest, I think is an amazing period of self-connection.
Yeah, I feel great.
Yes. Well, let's talk about our special guest who's also in her 40s.
Mm. Perfect.
What a segue. What a segue. Okay, so Kelly is so interesting to me because she's lived this really big life and she's very open about it. So I'll give a little bio. Kelly Cervantes, award-winning nonfiction author, grief writer, patient advocate whose work is really centered on loss and caregiving and resilience. Her newest book is a memoir. It's called The Luckiest, a memoir of love, loss, motherhood, and the pursuit of self. We'll dive into a lot of these topics in the interview, but her husband actually played Hamilton in Chicago and on Broadway. So they had all of these really fascinating experiences through his role as an actor. They also, I don't know if we want to dive into it early, but they've gone through a lot of familial heartache. They've gone through adoption. Kelly is a recent breast cancer survivor. She just is somebody who has an incredible perspective on life and has also traversed the true highs and lows of it.
I can't wait for you guys to hear this conversation.
Kelly, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Okay, since this is a podcast about connection, I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't thank our shared connection, which is Tanya Babich, who told me, I'm trying to think, it was 2 years ago. She's like, you have to talk to Kelly. And when people I like and respect insist that I meet somebody, I hold on to that really tightly. And so she put us in touch and I instantly loved you. And so it feels very full circle to get to interview you today.
Yay! Oh, I love Tanya so much.
So I just finished reading your new book, your memoir, The Luckiest. And I just mentioned to you off tape that I was reading it on the plane. What I didn't get to is that I finished it on an airplane ride home. I didn't have adequate Kleenex. I'm crying in my seat. I was like, don't do this to yourself. Like, I can't read emotional content on airplanes. But I went on such a journey with you, and I wanted you to kind of set up what this memoir is all about.
Yeah, thank you. Although I'm sorry for putting you in an uncomfortable situation on an airplane.
Self-imposed.
Yeah, so this book, I have been needling and working on it for years, and then was finally actually, I didn't know the method in which, like the structure for it. And then I came across a quote by Maggie Smith, the poet, where she said, "We're all nesting dolls carrying the previous versions of ourselves inside of us." And I was like, yeah, that part. And I realized that I have so many layers. I am composed of so many nesting dolls. And so every chapter of this book is another layer that has sort of created and built me into the person that I am today, which is something that I've struggled with because I could cut and dice my life in so many different ways, from the different careers that I've had. I'm 43 years old and I'm on my fourth career. The different cities, places that I've lived in all over the country, from the different makeups of my family. And it's hard to sort of reconcile all of those things in one person. And then a good chunk of the book takes place when in the same week My 7-month-old daughter, Adelaide, was diagnosed with epilepsy. Miguel, my husband, received a phone call letting him know that after, I mean, good Lord, I think it was like 4, 5, 6 weeks of auditioning, he had been cast as Alexander Hamilton in the New York production for 1 month, and then in the Chicago production, where he would be Alexander Hamilton for the duration of the show, sitting down in Chicago 4 years or something. And with the combination of that news, I came to the conclusion that while I had been our family's primary breadwinner up until that point, working in hospitality, coordinating and selling events, that I was going to have to leave my career so that I could help our family with this move and take care of my daughter, who now could no longer be in daycare. And as you know, Miguel took on this insanely large role. And it was a really incredible and wild 4 years for our family. Miguel called it holding onto a rocket in one hand and a parachute in the other. You know, I had to leave the hospital, Adelaide in the hospital, for the very first time I had ever done that, to go watch Miguel throw out the first pitch at Wrigley Field.
Mhm.
I'm picking up yet another anti-seizure medication for Adelaide at the pharmacy, and I walk by the magazine stand, and there's Miguel on the cover with Lin-Manuel Miranda in black and white on Chicago Magazine. You know, I'm on the phone with our nurse slash babysitter because we couldn't leave Adelaide with someone who didn't have some sort of training, and going to watch Miguel sing the national anthem at a Chicago Bears football game, Monday Night Football. And I'm texting with our nurse to find out how many seizures Adelaide has had since I left home. And it was just this insane ride to be on. And then when Adelaide was about 3.5 years old, she was undiagnosed for the duration of her life. And but the doctors were able to determine that whatever was causing all of her symptoms, that it was neurodegenerative. And she passed away just a few days before her 4th birthday, which was obviously devastating, but also threw me into another retirement party, and though less festive. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And so, you know, and entering this next new normal and this next journey. And so that's where the book sort of continues on. And I wanted to write this book that showed women that that there isn't just one coming of age, that we are constantly becoming this sort of next beautifully painted doll in the series of our lives.
Oh, Kelly.
That was a whole lot.
Even though we know this about you, it is
Yeah.
so hard not to feel deeply emotional. And you are so incredible. I'm going to cede some time to Gina because I know she has questions too, but I have a list of them for you.
Yeah. Rachel's had a chance obviously to read the book, and she and I like got on the phone and she was like, Gina, let me tell you everything about this incredible woman. And I think we spent half an hour just like saying wonderful things about you and all of these. Yeah. So well, first of all, the nesting doll concept, so interesting. And I'm so curious, as you talk about this book, is there a version of yourself that wrote the book? Or did you kind of like talk to each stage and say like, what's up, Kelly from 22? What do you have to say?
I totally had to go back into the previous versions of Kelly, and that wasn't easy, especially like the early 20-something Kelly, because I'm not super proud of a lot of the decisions that she made. I don't think many of us want to go back to our early 20-something selves without a, you know, fully formed prefrontal lobe, but that it was really hard. I actually had to leave our house, and I borrowed a friend's house, and went to their house and had to write several of the chapters there because I couldn't do it in my home where I was comfortable and confident and all, you know, I had to remove myself from this entire situation of this lovely, beautiful family that I have now, and put myself back in order to be able to put myself back into this mindset of this insecure, figuring life out 20-something.
So the title is so interesting because it feels like a dichotomy, the luckiest. And there are periods of your life where you're like objectively very fortunate. Some really incredible things transpire. But then you actually have plenty of periods of your life that are in direct opposition to being lucky. And even the song, the Ben Folds 5 song at your wedding, The Luckiest. I mean, the through line is really powerful. And so I'm interested in hearing what luck means to you, how your shifting beliefs around the concept of luck have changed. It's really salient.
Yeah, I don't know that anyone looks at my life and says, "Oh my goodness, she is truly the luckiest." But I'm not the unluckiest either, and I luck is something that I have struggled with for years now, and it really kind of came to a culmination. It was there's a scene in the book. Broadway has just reopened post COVID, and we're going to see the first performance back, and it's intermission, and the woman sitting next to me, she's young, she's a musical theater student, and she's so excited. She realizes that Miguel is my husband, and she is just fangirling the whole thing, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, you guys are so lucky." And in my head I have two sort of thoughts. One is that Miguel has worked in this career for decades before he got this kind of role. And the second was, my daughter's dead. How can I be lucky if my daughter's dead? And I, in mulling over that moment, I realized that luck is all about our perception, right? She saw this family, this mother and son. My son was with me at the time, and we're watching our husband star in the hottest ticket on Broadway. And that was her perception. And so in her line of sight, yeah, I guess suppose we were lucky. And but that is all luck is. Luck is what you can see. It's the it's the Instagram squares, what you are shown, what you allow people to see. It's the fraction of time that you're analyzing. And so I look at my life, and it has its lucky moments and it has its unlucky moments, and that's okay. I also like to look at luck. I'm like, there's what I can control, and then there's everything else, and luck is part of that everything else. It is out of my control, good, bad, otherwise. Um so I don't know. I've sort of detached myself a little from the concept of luck, ironically, after writing a book called The Luckiest. Um, but the interesting thing is that at the end of the day, like, what people look at me and would think that I am certainly not the luckiest because my child passed away. I actually look at that, and I think that in being Adelaide's mother, that I got to be her mother, that I got to know her. I mean, that makes me feel like the luckiest person in the world.
Well, honestly, if Rachel, if we do not cry on
Oh,
this
I'm already, I
podcast,
don't know if you
yeah,
noticed. I was like,
I
here we
know.
go.
There's
Yes.
there's Misty. I well, first of all, Kelly, thank you so much for sharing, one, for sharing that perspective with us, and two, for sharing it with the world in your books. I think it's such a lovely, this is just me opining, it's such a lovely way to have a legacy both for Adelaide and for you, um, to share that story. So thank you for letting us hear it and be a part of it. Okay, I want to talk about a friend in the book named Jenny, who refused to be kept at an arm's length and wanted to
Yes.
become a part of this.
Yeah.
What did it mean to have? Tell us about Jenny and what it meant to have her in your orbit during everything.
I can't imagine getting through our time in Chicago without Jenny. Jenny is the mother of one of my son Jackson's closest friends. They still consider each other brothers. But they were in the same kindergarten class, and Jackson had been begging for a play date. And I couldn't really wrap my head around having other kids over to our house with all of Adelaide's medical equipment. And I'm like, what do I do if he has a play date and Adelaide has a seizure, and like balancing all of this? And so unfortunately, Jackson kind of missed out on some typical childhood things just because I couldn't figure out how to make them happen. And but Jenny would not let that go. And she invited me over to her house. She was having some moms over from the elementary school, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. Jackson can go. He and Henry will play. It's going to be wonderful." Um, and I'll just go, and then I'll go home. I'll drop him off, and then I'll go home, because traveling with Adelaide was really hard. If she had a seizure, if she overheated, there were so many things, traveling with her equipment. It was a lot to think about. And if I didn't have support, if I was doing it by myself, I got really anxious. And so we didn't leave the house a lot without our nurse, or without Miguel, or without someone who was able to help me. And Jenny would not take no for an answer. And I ended up at her house. I got there early thinking, okay, I'm going to get there early and then we can leave early. And I had never met anyone that was so accommodating to Adelaide. I mean, it was as if she knew what Adelaide needed before I did, which on one hand, like, offended me, because I'm like, how dare you know my daughter better than me? But then I come to find out that Jenny also has a chronic illness. And so she does understand some of these things better than I do, because she's living it, whereas I'm caregiving for her. And and we became closer. And then in turn, Jackson was really struggling, understandably. I'm in the hospital with Adelaide once a month, once every other month, for several nights, and Miguel's at the theater every night. And so I would have babysitters go to spend time with Jackson until Miguel could get home from the theater. I thought that for Jackson, that was best, like him sleeping in his own bed, having continuity in his home, that was what was going to be best for him. Jackson let me know through a rather challenging conversation that was not what he wanted. That he was like, why can't Adelaide have a babysitter at the hospital? That was his first solution as a 5-6-year-old. And I was like, it doesn't work that way. But the compromise that we came to was that he could have sleepovers at Henry's house. And so Jenny became a surrogate mother to Jackson. Henry became his brother. He had his own room at Jenny's house, and it alleviated so much stress for our family, because I would just call and be like, hey, we're back in the hospital. Can you get Jackson when you pick up Henry? And then, Miguel would drop off fresh clothes or pick him up and take him to school in the morning, so he would still get time with him. But it was, we cannot do these challenging parts of our life alone. We can't do any part of our life alone, like, hands down. But when we are dealing with incredibly stressful pieces of our life, we have to build our community. We didn't have direct family in Chicago. I had some cousins who we ended up becoming close with, but that I didn't really know before then. You have to build a community. And Jenny was the pinnacle, and the base, and everything in between.
Kelly, you call out a number of wonderful friends. Jenny's just one that, like, we kind of glommed onto, because I loved her tenacity and her unwillingness to let you back out of it. And I'm going to try to share this line without crying, but nope, I'm not going to be able to do it. When Adelaide passed, she said this beautiful thing to you. And I just thought it was, like, so emotionally attuned, where she just kind of knew. Yeah. And she said, I just felt like her energy wasn't in the world anymore. Oh, talk about a friend that's, like, living your life with you in emotional tandem.
Yeah, she was with us. When it became too difficult for Adelaide to leave the house, we did FNLs, Friday Night Laughs. And so Jenny would bring her kids to my house, and we would cuddle with Adelaide on the couch and watch inappropriate comic stand-up routines, and the kids would be downstairs playing. And and so she became so ingrained in our life. And but it's really remarkable, because in writing this book, I recognize just how important my female friendships have been throughout my life, that at every emotional stage, every crisis point, there has been a different friend who has stepped up and been that support system for me. And I hope that I have been the support system for my friends, that they have been for me, because I'm just eternally grateful. I think I am as resilient as I am because I am surrounded by some of the strongest women I could possibly know.
To have great friends is such a blessing, and I'm so glad you had that village. I wanted to ask you something else too. You talk about these four different career arcs that you've had,
Yeah.
and I really identified and wanted to applaud you for talking about something that I think people don't say out loud, which is it's very hard when your identity is wrapped up in your work and that identity shifts. And you went through a period of going from breadwinner, crushing it in New York, working in hospitality, to being a primary mom and caregiver. And you even talk about how people stopped using your name. They would say, Mom at the hospital, Mom, can you sign this? Mom, can you come over here? Or Miguel's wife or Jackson's mom. And it's like, where's Kelly?
Yeah.
So I wanted to dive into what that experience felt like and then how you've recalibrated to get your identity back.
I look at this as another form of grief. And I think that it's this ambiguous kind of grief that I don't think gets acknowledged, but it's a part of our identity loss that we
Mhm.
are experiencing. And I was having a conversation with another author, Amy Better's Midbit, and she wrote a book about parenting teenagers. And she's talked about how we allow teenagers to cocoon. Like teenage boys, my son is 13, he does this now. He like goes into his room and he shuts the door and then we just don't see him. Like he's cocooning, and eventually he will leave his trashed, smelly room, I suppose, at some point and like come out this like grown-ish teen man thing person. I don't know. God willing. Um and but I don't think that we like that sort of coming of age, it doesn't just happen once in our lives. And I think we have to be able to give ourselves permission to cocoon when we go through one of these major identity crises, when we leave a career, whether it's our choice or not. We have to give ourselves this opportunity to cocoon, to adjust, to like figure out who this next version of ourself is going to be that isn't so associated with that career. And it took me like a solid year to figure out who that person was going to be. And part of that was I needed to stop resisting the change, which is really just another form of grief. Um, because this wasn't, I didn't want to be at home all the time. I was jealous that Miguel was getting standing ovations, that he got to go out for drinks after work, that his schedule was his and he wasn't tied down to a medication schedule. And I had to work through a lot of that and come to a place of acceptance that, like, this is what my life is right now. That doesn't mean that this is what my life is going to be forever, but this is what it is right now. This is what it needs to be. This is what my family needs it to be. And then try and figure out what levers were mine to control. Let go of what I couldn't control what I could, and then make the choice to move forward. And that was my cocooning year. And I really am passionate that we have to be able to grant ourselves those, that time multiple times throughout our lives.
And I feel like that's such a beautiful way of sort of, we were talking before we started recording, and all of us sort of want more control in our life, but I think all of us acknowledge like that's just not how life works. and, and so I think we all come to a point in our adult life where we realize that, where we're like, this is not, there's sure, I get to pick how I do my hair. I get to pick the clothes I put on my body, the steps I take out the door. But beyond that, like anything could happen. And I think there's a certain amount of surrender in that, that is really, really beautiful. And I guess, Kelly, my question is like, it feels like you're in a season of finding this surrender. Do you feel like that's a part of grief, or do you feel that that's a part of this new identity, or both?
Ooh, that's a great question. Feel like it is, I feel like it's a part of both. I feel like
Mhm.
every time we are grieving a big change in our lives, and by big change, I mean a career change. I mean, losing someone in our life. I mean, because grief can be ambiguous, but it can also be, a person. So I think that whenever we go through a big change, um, that we have to find that surrender. And at some point, that is healing, right? Like you surrender that this is your new normal, that this is your new life, and you make the choice to move forward. And that is really that first pivotal point in healing. But I also feel like in like the grander scope of my life, I am also like it is something that I am personally more focused on now. And honestly, I think it's a good thing and it's a gift because I have the time and the brain capacity to be like, you know what? My control addiction is maybe not the healthiest way for me to be living my life. And perhaps it is causing me a lot more anxiety than is necessary, and that I could be enjoying my life more if I could find a way to surrender more, not just in my grief, but in general, in this like bigger capacity. So I feel like I am also in this next layer of my life, this next nesting doll of my life, that is certainly going to be one of my personal focuses um because it can be, because and what an incredible thing to be able to say that I'm choosing that for me because I can.
What does surrender, Kelly, look like? Because you start your book with the checklist, and I identified with the checklist. And I think for a certain type of woman, and I'll lump us together, you feel like grand plan, here's the steps, this is what accomplished looks like, this is what succeeding looks like, and then life can have other plans. So I'm very interested in your surrender era.
I'm fascinated by it too. I have no idea what it looks like. I think there's a lot less guilt in it. I think there is that's my first thing. That's my first step. So I write a blog and I put it out every Friday. And today is Friday. And I woke up this morning and I was like, oh my God, I didn't write the blog this week. It's just like life is happening and holidays are happening and I'm marketing this book and all of these things. And I was like, oh my God, how did I rarely 8 years of writing this blog. I can count the number of times this has happened on one hand. And I panicked. And then I was like, you know what? It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. And I wrote something up really quick and I posted it and I was like, and then I moved on and I was like, oh wait, the world didn't crash down. I don't have to feel guilty about this. I can just release it and keep going forward. So a very, very small way, like, but I think that that's what an ultimate surrendering is going to look like. It's going to be those inch stones, one of my favorite words. That the concept of inch stones comes out of the disability community, and the idea is that um, in our lives, particularly for children, you measure these milestones that you go through as a child. But in the disability community, quite often, maybe your child takes longer to meet that milestone, or maybe they never meet that milestone, but there are the inch stones along the way. And so you celebrate every single one of those inch stones. And at some point, I realized that concept, that I could apply that to my life as well, and that I could celebrate my own personal inch stones. So I'm going to acknowledge my inch stone of this morning of not feeling guilt and not beating myself up and just sort of letting that piece go, that life was happening. And sometimes that happens and that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, congratulations on your inch stone.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. I'd love to talk a little bit about, so we talked about Jenny. I'm obsessed with community. So is Rachel. I'd love to hear about sort of communities of people. I heard you mention the disability community. Talk us through sort of the folks in New York City and New Jersey and Chicago who you've sort of found yourself a part of, who've helped you at the various steps along the way in the past 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I do feel very fortunate. I mean, when we had our New Jersey community and then we left and we moved to Chicago, we had our like Maplewood, New York City people, and we moved to Chicago, and essentially Adelaide's entire life was in Chicago. And it was there that we were introduced to the disability and the epilepsy communities. We found our Chicago people. And so when it was time to move back to New Jersey, it was hard and it was scary, even though we had community there, because they hadn't been with us through every step of Adelaide's life. And, but I have to say that our community here on the East Coast was so warm and so welcoming. And we host a birthday party for Adelaide every year on her birthday. And it has gotten to the point where I think there's probably more people who attend her birthday party who didn't know her than who did. And I always thought that that would be this like really sad moment for me, that we have more friends who didn't know her than who did. And I couldn't imagine a time like that. But now, as I think about that and this community that we've been able to build here, beyond the people that we knew, because Jackson has friends and our daughter Anessa has friends, and your community just continues to grow and build. Thank goodness, right? But it's such a wonderful thing to be able to share Adelaide, even though these people didn't know her in life. They know the version of her that we get to share with them, and they know the stories, and they're still celebrating her. And how freaking cool is that? So I think that's one of my favorite pieces about community, is that it does continue to grow and that we get to add to it. And even a major life change doesn't mean that it needs to end. I'm still very involved in the epilepsy community, a board member of Cure Epilepsy. Within the rare disease community, I sit on the board of the Undiagnosed Diseases Network Foundation. I thought that Adelaide's death would also be the end of my involvement in some of these communities, just because I didn't have a child to represent that part of my life anymore, but it hasn't. And in a way, it keeps me, closer to Adelaide in that way. I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know. I would have been surprised. Kelly of 6 years ago would have been shocked to hear what I'm saying now.
One thing that has really struck me in getting to know you, which has been so wonderful, and reading your blog and reading both your books, is you're living your life in the public eye. And you write about it with such grace and humor. And I love people who are self-deprecating and warm and swear and all the things. Like, it's a very human voice that you put forward, which I think is so, so compelling. But I'm wondering now that your true life story, not just the grief chapter, but the whole scope, and you've had a lot of life and you've had a lot of almost like cinematic moments. How is it feeling to have your book in the world? What has the response been like for you?
Before it came, like the week before it came out, I started to like panic a little bit. I was like, wait, did I need to put all of those, that story and that story? Did that need to be in there? Is so-and-so going to find out? And I was like, yes, they're going to find out, and it's going to be okay. And it is what it is. The response has been wonderful, because I do think that there is a part of my story that is going to resonate with every single person who reads it. I have a specific life mantra that is that I'm just not that special. And I know that that sounds super harsh. We are all special in the way that PBS's Mr. Rogers taught us that we are. However, nothing, my life story is my life story, and that is special to me. But my response to it, my emotions around it, certain thoughts that pop into my head, those are not unique to me. My response to my life is not unique to me. So I know that by sharing it, whether it be in the blog or whether it be in the book, that there are people out there who are going, it's going to resonate with them. They're going to get it. They will have, even if their experience wasn't the same, they're going to have had a similar response to something that happened to them. And that's why I write it, because I think, you're talking about community. I think it is so important that we share our stories with our community. We are human beings are social creatures. We need to share. We have to connect. if we don't, that's when we start to see all of these mental illness epidemics. And so sharing our stories is part of that. And I'm just honored um, that I get to share mine, and that I have this weird, uncanny ability to put these complicated emotions into words.
I'm going to dispute one thing you said. I think that you are deeply special. You're just not alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Mm.
appreciate that.
You are.
Rachel's
You're
like, I'm
very.
changing your mantra.
I'm yes, and also young Kelly was very concerned in the book about being special, and I know
I
that
was
word
super
mattered a
concerned.
lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm curious, Kelly, as we're in this stage of life and you're going through different battles, being diagnosed with breast cancer. Talk me through how, or talk us through how you sort of approached that differently with all you learned over the course of your life.
Yeah. Breast cancer, 0 out of 10, do not recommend, was
Mhm.
not on my bingo card for 25, but here we are. I like to say that there are asteroids floating all around us, and you never know when the next one is going to crater at your feet. And this was my next one. And, but it's interesting because I got my mammogram on January 2nd of 25, and, biopsy, within several weeks, I had this diagnosis. And I am very comfortable within the medical care system, health insurance, reading test results, all of that. It was almost kind of comforting to me to like pull some of these skills out. And so I feel like I skipped a couple steps, because I think a lot of people, when they get a cancer diagnosis or breast cancer or whatever, a lot of times it's their first, they're getting, a crash course in how American medical system works. And that was not the case for me. I got to fast forward. But I was also shocked in my experiences with Adelaide, because her conditions were neurological and we know nothing about the brain in comparison with the rest of the body. I walked into my breast surgeon and she's like, you have this kind of cancer. This is how we're going to treat it. These are what the test results mean. This is your prognosis. And it was just all laid out. We were throwing darts at a board trying to figure out the next medication or treatment or test for Adelaide. And so it was just so eye-opening to me. I was like, oh, this is what medicine could actually be if we like properly research things and have like targets to treat. I was like, oh my, like it validated my life's work of focusing on medical research, because breast cancer is one of the most well-researched diseases out there. And thank goodness I am the beneficiary. I am cancer-free. I've had 3 surgeries this year, reconstruction, the whole thing. And I'm cancer-free. It's the end of the year and I get to start a new year putting all of this behind me. And how incredible, like, yay science, yay research. Like, that's
Yes.
remarkable. Thank you to all of the women who went on walks and raised money and advocated so that I could be the recipient of that. And so I really went through this breast cancer journey just sort of in awe and grateful. And then also, I think, shoving down any complicated emotions, because I felt like I was kind of cheating cancer, because I didn't have to have radiation. I didn't have to have chemo. And I was like, in the grand scheme of my life, I was never really sick. I had to recover from these surgeries, but I just kept pushing that down. And then about a couple weeks ago, it all sort of started to bubble up when I went in to get nipple tattoos, which is, again, just like, the entire thing has been so bizarre. And it was the final piece of this chapter, and I lost it. And I really had to like come to grips with this grief of leaving this year with a body that I did not enter it with. And recognizing that I had blindly trusted and had faith in my body, even though I know, like, I never, like, I can't believe this happened to me. I've lived too much, been through too much. That is never the question. but that I still trusted that my body would like warn me if there was something wrong, or I don't get to blindly trust that my body is just going to be healthy and going to be okay. And how grateful am I that I've lived the first 40 years of my life being able to have that blind faith. A lot of people don't have that, but I did, and it was crushed this year. And so there was all of these other pieces that I had to grieve and process and work through. Thankfully, I'm very well versed in those things. And so I could do that. I sat down and I just started writing about all of it. And writing is my number one therapeutic tool. I put it out there, I write it, I edit it, I process it, and then I share it. And by the time I share it, I've really most of the times come out on the other side. But it was, I feel like every couple months there would be like another emotional piece that I was not anticipating and would either shove down or share.
Again, I really feel like you live at two ends of the spectrum. Like your book comes out and you have this beautiful story and it's being well received. And then you're dealing with a breast cancer diagnosis. And then it's your husband's cast in Hamilton after years of trying to be an actor. And then your daughter's diagnosed with epilepsy. So I just feel like you do such a remarkable job with grace and poise and humor of living at the extremes, like the big and I find it really inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not, I don't know the other way to do it, but I do find that humor helps a whole lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, should we have a connection conversation?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, Kelly, we like to ask our guests a couple of connection related questions. First and foremost, we want to know about the last connection or friend that you made.
Yes. I got to meet, so I was just out in LA as part of my book tour, and there is this fabulous, wonderful, it's like a 2-day conference. There's Endwell, which is like death, dying, grief, loss, all of the things. And you would think that it is like this super depressing conference, but it is wonderful and people are laughing and smiling. And then the next day is the Grieftastic Book Fair, and it's all authors who write about griefy death loss things. And it is two of like the most fun days of like networking and meeting people. And I had the opportunity to, I guess it was reconnect. There is a cemetery in New York. It's called Greenwood Cemetery. It's gorgeous. It's in Brooklyn. And the woman who is in charge of their grief and death education got to reconnect with her and then go out and give a talk and share about my book and grief writing and all of that just last week. And so and just never, everything has a community, right? And even death, dying, loss, grief, and you would be shocked by how fantastic, warm, and hysterical, deeply hysterical that community is.
I feel like I need to know more, but I do love that there's a community for everything and you can always find your people. Second question is, if you could go back in time to young adult Kelly, what advice would you give yourself about connection?
That everyone is trying to make connections, and I was so insecure, and I remember for like moving to New York and like going to some of these networking parties and just being terrified of introducing myself to anyone, just living in this like desperate fear of like clinging to the wall to like not go and meet new people. And the advice that I would give her is like, girl, you just go say hi. Go, hi, I am, well, Kelly Martin then. And you know, and it's really that simple. It is really, truly that simple.
It's not easy to do though. Yes.
No.
Yes.
No, it's a learned skill for sure.
In practice, it is scarier than saying it out loud. That's for sure. Speaking of making a friend, is there someone out there who is a dream connection to you who you haven't yet met?
Anderson Cooper.
Ooh, this is a first for us.
Yeah.
I'm inching my way closer. I'm
You
like,
can get there.
I'm almost there. But yeah, I'm I'm manifesting that one.
I feel like guest bartender spot on Andy Cohen into
Oh,
Anderson Cooper. He
yeah.
loves authors. He loves authors as guest bartender.
Okay.
Kelly, we need
Yeah.
to brainstorm this. I'm like, I feel that there is a way to get you to
Yeah,
Anderson Cooper.
for sure.
He must be a Hamilton fan. Lean on Miguel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a couple of connections that are like a degree away. It's
Right.
just making it happen.
Yeah. Getting
Mm,
Kelly
that's a
off
good
the
one.
wall to say
Yes.
hello. Get off the
Yes.
wall, Kelly.
I know.
So as we wrap up our time with you, Kelly, let the listener know where to find your book, how to find your blog, and anything else you want them to know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is called The Luckiest. And I also have another book, Normal Broken, which is more of a prescriptive grief companion. Both books are available everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can request it from your local indie bookstore. And then the blog is available on my website or on Substack. You can search up Kelly Cervantes, Instagram, Facebook. I post it there as well, along with whatever crazy things my family is experiencing at the moment, which with a 13-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a undiagnosed ADHD husband who used to be on Broadway, it is you can only imagine.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was lovely.
Yes,
Kelly,
so much
yes. We could talk to you for so long. We're trying to be so respectful of time, but you have a fabulous story. So appreciate you sharing it with us. And I can't wait to watch you flourish and become best friends with Anderson Cooper.
Yay!
Get the book, everybody.
Buy the book. Yes.
Rachel, what an excellent get. Thank you so much for bringing Kelly to the podcast.
I am, first of all, appreciating that you always are like, sure, I'll talk to whoever that you would suggest for this. But Kelly's been somebody who's been on my radar for a couple years. I've been so impressed with her. I feel like I've been rooting for her from afar. And then we had coffee in Chicago fairly recently. And I was like, will you be on my podcast? We should do this. And she's like, of course. And so I felt very honored that she wanted to share her story with us. And it is a great story. And it's a book I highly recommend.
Yeah. And you hear her sharing her story. It's really interesting because if you saw Hamilton in Chicago, you were witnessing like one side, the rocket ship that they were holding on of the equation, because Miguel was on stage as Alexander Hamilton. Wild.
You know what? You just made me realize I'm going to tell you a different show and tell. It's going to be Hamilton inspired.
Wow, that's so exciting. Rachel, should we do show and tell?
Let's do it.
Okay, Rachel, what's your new show and tell? I can't wait.
I can't. I don't think I've ever told you this story. I don't know. This is one of the craziest things I've done. But when Hamilton came to Chicago, it was the ticket to get. And it was a hard ticket. And it was an expensive ticket. It was all those things. So this was an era where there was a ride service in Chicago called Via. Do you remember it?
I do remember Via.
Okay. So I would take Vias, which for anybody who hasn't, it's like Lyft or Uber, but it's a shared ride. So it'd be really inexpensive, but you are paired with a stranger. And this is pre-COVID, way back. I didn't care. I wanted the budget ride. So I was taking a lot of Vias. And one day I had this Via driver whose name was Sydney, and he had on the Hamilton soundtrack. And he was singing along perfectly. And it is not easy. I mean, there is so much that you have to memorize and also stay on beat. Yeah. And I was like, you're incredible. And he's like, oh, thanks. Like, I really love it. And I was like, have you seen Hamilton? He goes, no, I can't get a ticket. They're expensive, all this stuff. But I really love it. And I go, can I take a little video of you? I just think you're amazing. So I took this video of Sydney rapping to Hamilton and I put it on Twitter and it got some nice responses. And I was like, oh, I hope Sydney gets to Hamilton because he really deserves it. So how many drivers do you have in the city? 1 million. Yeah. I end up in the back seat again of Sydney's car and he's rapping to Hamilton. And I'm like, you probably don't remember me, but I remember you. We took a video. You're so great. Da, da, da. Have you gone to see Hamilton yet? And he goes, no, I haven't been able to get a ticket. And I go, I feel like I want to work on this for you. I feel like you have to go
Yeah.
see Hamilton. And so I was like, this can't be the hardest thing to figure out. Somebody's got to give him a ticket. And so I went through and found Via's PR person. And I was like, you have this driver that's so incredible. You should do a surprise. You
Oh,
should
yeah.
get him a ticket and I will help figure out like a camera crew moment or something like that. But like, this would be the right thing to do. And so we ended up coordinating, I
right
think, with
thing.
Broadway in Chicago. Yeah, I like basically just inserted myself in like Sydney needing this moment. I'm like, it's a great PR story. We should do this. So I worked with them and they're like, you should give him the surprise. So I got to go to Via's headquarters and I had like the special folder. And I'm like, hi, Sydney. Like, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Rachel. I was in your car. Like, I did this whole build up and there's like cameras. And I said, you really deserve to go to Hamilton. And so I'm so excited to present to you 2 tickets for you to go. And it was the best reaction. He said, aside from getting married and having his kids, it was the best day of his life.
Oh my God.
And we took the cutest picture together and like had this whole moment. And then my friend Marissa at the time worked for CBS in Chicago as an on-air reporter, on-air anchor. And I said, I think this might be a good feel-good story. Like maybe you want to do something on Sydney? And she goes, yeah, but you're going to be in it. And I was like, oh God, this is
obviously
different. So she came over, we filmed, Sydney came over, we did a whole thing. And then Marissa felt so inspired by his story that she got him a free dinner at the restaurant near the theater. So he and his wife could have dinner and then go to the show. Oh my God, Gina, it was so affirming and so special. And I wanted him to meet Miguel, but I didn't know Kelly then. I had no contact at that time to help. But he and I are still Facebook friends. And it was a wonderful moment where I'm like, one time being in his backseat, like I wish him the best. Second time in his backseat, I need to do this. I felt like it was incumbent upon me. Use my powers for good. Find the PR person, make a moment, and Sydney got to go to Hamilton.
I loved that era of social media. Like what you're describing is my very favorite era of social media, the surprise and delight, where it was like, oh, you'd find someone cool and you'd give them something. No questions asked, nothing asked in return. It was a lovely time. And now we're in the like dunk on each other era, which I don't like so much.
No, this was so pure and so fun. And I'm sure I have those segment links somewhere, but that's my Hamilton story.
Oh my God. I love that. I don't think I really saw that coming or knew what the Hamilton story was going to be, but I love that so much because I just think it's probably like a very salient memory for Sydney and his wife.
Well, I thought there's so many people who can afford to go to the show or get tickets who may be like moderate fans. But here's a hardcore fan who has this one blockade, and let's just remove the blockade and get him there.
Yes.
Okay. I want to hear your show and tell. That was a long story on my part.
A perfect story. So my show and tell it's actually like on the bummer side of friendship. We've talked before about like friendship breakups and friendship loss, and what causes them. And a lot of times it's aging, moving, new values. Different family situations can often cause them too. But there's actually a therapist. I sent this to you in our ongoing conversation about connection, friendship, and networking, which is also known as our text chain. I sent this to you, and it starts out with why you're no longer friends with your bridesmaids. And I think like
yes,
I
remember this. I read this,
and it's such like it puts a nice wrapper on something a lot of people experience, but don't really know how to. Either you don't feel okay about it because it feels like, oh, I've done something wrong if I'm not friends with these people anymore or all of these people anymore. Or it puts it in perspective where like their situations have changed. Their families have changed. Our values are different. So I think it's just really my show and tell. I'll link to this in the show notes. Is just an acknowledgement that like sometimes friendships end because we move, our values shift. And it's not just because like you are changing. It's because we all are changing.
I thought that was a really powerful story. And the idea of not still being friends with bridesmaid hits me because I think I've been I think I've been a bridesmaid 15 or 16 times. And some of those were family members, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm not actively in touch with some of those women.
Right.
And some of them got married 24. So that's a 20-year span of being a bridesmaid.
Right.
Or I haven't been in a minute, but it's been 20 years since I first put on a bridesmaid dress for somebody. And it does make me sad that there's people who I was so central to their lives that I stood up there as they took their vows. And today, maybe there's a birthday text, maybe there's like a once in a while, like happy holidays. But I guess we evolve and we go in different directions, and it's geographic and it could be any number of factors. But it's okay, I suppose, that that friendship served a great purpose for that specific era.
Yeah. It's fun now for me to chat with couples, because at Petite Acres, we are serving like a lot of couples who are having their weddings at the venue. And I talk to a lot of them about planning their wedding. And so I asked the question, like, are you planning to have a bridal party? Because it's not assumed anymore that you're going to have a bridal party. And it's kind of for two different reasons. Either one, you have too many friends, or two, you just don't want to leave anybody out. So there's either like the traditional path of we have a wedding party, that it is what it is, or we don't at all, because we don't want anyone to feel bad about it. And I kind of like that direction of going towards like no bridal party, because it's sort of like you look back at your wedding photos for some people and they're like, who are even these people?
What did you do?
We had a bridal party. I don't know if I would. I don't know if, I mean, like, I probably would today. I'd advocate for it if you really like feel really strongly about having a bridal party. But I also I feel like I could have a really wonderful wedding with no bridal party. You had a bridal party, right?
Not really. So by the time Ruben and I got married, so I was one of the later of my friends to get married. And so we did this in our slideshow as kind of like a nod to the Forever Bridesmaid. I was literally in the Chicago Sun-Times because they were 26 dresses. Is that the name of the movie?
Yeah, it was 27 dresses.
27 dresses, not 26. Okay, 27 dresses came
Captain
out
Hagel.
and they were like, yes. And they're like, who's a real life version of the Forever Bridesmaid, not a bride? And it was me. And so I literally had this whole feature with,
what the fuck?
You know what? I could have opted out. Like I got referred into it and I was like, might as well have fun with it. And so it was like pictures of all these dresses and da-da-da. And so by the time I got married, I did a little montage of all of the bridesmaid dresses and all the weddings I'd been in and the story. But that had been 10 weddings. And I feel like the polite thing to do is if somebody asks you, you need to ask them back. And I'm like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't. And even at that point, I had new people I would have wanted to bring in the mix. And I was going to have a sister-in-law. So we decided family only. My sister, Ruben's sister, my brother, Ruben's brother. And we just kept it to family.
I think that's lovely. I honestly, I think like there are some couples I talk to and they'll mention like, I have these two really solid groups of friends, like college and high school. And like, I want to pick some from one and some from another, or all from, and I always give them the advice, like, if you pick some from one and some from another, people are going to feel left out. You have to make a rule and stick to it if you want to have a bridal party, or if you can't make a rule, don't do it. So it's like only childhood friends, only family, only ex. That saves you from, it gives you an explanation. It saves you from heartache. It saves your friends from heartache too.
Gina, so wise. I feel we could do a whole episode around wedding protocols based on your experience now being a wedding venue, but we'll save it for another day.
I mean, like, we'll talk at length about my lack of thank you cards, but I do other nice things too. I do other nice things besides thank you card. I prefer a gift in advance. Well, Rachel, anything else you want to talk about during our show and tell? We've talked about so much today. Do you want to share your other show and tell, or save it for something else?
I'm going to save it. For another one. But thank you for asking.
I know, it was a good one. Well, this has been another episode of The Connection Code, a podcast about friends, connections, work, and everything in between. This is a production by two friends, Rachel Gilman-Rishel and Gina Anderson-Cohen. You can follow us on Instagram using our full names and on LinkedIn. We love to hear from you. So if you have like a message for us, for our guests, or a question, hit us up. We love a DM. Thank you so much to Ben Cleaver for editing this podcast and to you for listening.
Thank you.
And thank you to Kelly Cervantes for being a guest on this podcast. My goodness. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.